I am Brenda Slaughter-Reynolds. I am joined here by my fabulous colleagues, Ben Espinosa and Muna Benboaza. I would invite you to first enter your questions into the chat. We will also give you an opportunity to unmute yourself and ask your question if it is pertinent to the group. And please feel free at any time to type your questions into the chat as we move forward with our presentation. I'm going to begin first with an overview of the Cultural Grant Program, and then Ben will lead us through the specifics of the SurveyMonkey Apply application itself. So as you know, this is an annual program of the Department of Cultural Affairs. Each year, the program is updated a little bit, and we try to streamline it and make it pertinent to all involved. So welcome. And as I get started, I'd just like to let you know a little bit about the Department of Cultural Affairs. As a leading and progressive arts and cultural agency, the Department of Cultural Affairs of Los Angeles empowers our vibrant communities by supporting and providing access to quality visual, literary, musical, performing, and educational arts programming. We manage vital cultural centers, we preserve historic sites, and we create public art and funding services provided by arts organizations and individual artists. DCA was founded in 1925 and promotes arts and culture as a way to ignite a powerful dialogue, engage LA's residents and visitors, and ensure LA's varied cultures are recognized, acknowledged, and experienced. DCA's mission is to strengthen the quality of life in Los Angeles by stimulating and supporting the arts and cultural activities, ensuring public access to the arts and residents and visitors alike. The Department of Cultural Affairs Cultural Grant Program eligibility is as follows. This program is specifically for organizations with a nonprofit status with an arts and culture mission. Non-arts mission organizations are eligible if they are partnering with arts partners for an outdoor festival or parade project proposal. All applicants should be based in the County of Los Angeles with services to take place within the City of Los Angeles. Please bear in mind you can be located in Burbank, but your programming must take place within the city, within one of the 15 council districts of the city. This cultural grant program funding is to make your projects bigger, better, faster, stronger. This grant program is not a seed funder program. This is for programs that have been done previously, and this iteration is in need of grant funding to help it grow. This grant program is also providing the ability for existing metrics on the the ability to provide existing metrics on the project and audiences recently served. So as I said, this is for a new iteration of your project. This is not for a brand new project. So in this application, you'll be providing us the previous history of your project with metrics and other narrative responses. This grant program has project-specific category qualifications. This year, 2022, is the year for performing arts, and I will get to those categories in just a moment. Muna, do we have any questions so far?
Thanks, Brenda. No questions so far.
Okay.
Oh, we do have a raised hand from Renato. Renato, please unmute yourself.
So my question is, this is our first time applying for this kind of grant. Are we okay with that, or you have to be already getting grant?
No, we welcome first-time applicants, but it should be for a project that you've already done before.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so continuing on to our proposal categories. We have two major categories for projects. Within the artistic project category, there are many disciplines. And within the festival parade category, there are many different types of festival parade. Let's go over artistic project. So this is going to be for support for the production or presentation of one or more public projects wherein local professional artists, arts instructors, or arts business mentors are engaged to perform roles which are commensurate with the skills, talent, and status described in their resumes or biographies. Those biographies go into the application. They're quite important, and they show us the artistic professionalism of your engagers. For the project of festivals and parades, this is very specific to DCA. This is an outdoor event taking place at a single public site over one day, or exclusively supports an outdoor event that will take place at one single public site, for instance, a street, a set of streets, set of sidewalks, one public park or public plaza over one day or one weekend. Generally, festival projects are annual, seasonal, or quarterly, or monthly, and may include art walks. This is a very large category. We're going to get more specific in just a moment. Are there any questions regarding the artistic projects or festival parade projects?
No.
Okay.
We do have a question.
All right.
But we're going to talk about that. So, but briefly, do educational projects count? We're going to.
Yes, I'll get into the specific types of artistic projects in just a moment. Right now, I'll go over the types of festival parade. So our festival parade category is tiered, small, large, and online, based on attendance and also viewership. Excuse me. Your small festival is going to have 1,000 to 2,000 attendees. Your large festival will have more than 2,000 attendees. And your online or virtual festival will have more than 4,000 attendees or viewers, 50% of which have to be LA based. And the reason we're going to have that qualifier is that these are funding, this fund is specifically for the residents of Los Angeles. And so by the metrics you collect on the viewership, you're going to show that 50% or more of your viewers were based in the city of Los Angeles. Now, it's very important for festivals that return to have new artistic participants, new artists, and introducing new forms and new acts. So for returning festival applicants, this is very important to understand that we need to see the new iteration and the new acts that you will be engaging at your festival. Do we have any festival questions?
Yes, Brenda, if we go back to one slide, back to artistic samples, we have a good question around educational projects and how that might fit under the artistic project category. What kind of educational projects can fit in artistic project, for example?
Well, we have two different ways you could do an educational project. One is our Sail Cape, which is for in-school learning with an after-school culminating event. And the other would be an after-school program that's an enrichment program to the participants. Ben, would you like to elaborate on that?
Sure. If I'm understanding the question correctly, an educational project doesn't necessarily have to serve primarily a youth, grade school level audience. Educational projects can certainly include adults, community members, and so the answer is yes, educational projects can count under an artistic project, with one important caveat, that sequence of learning and skill building culminates in one sort or more of public presentations. We certainly love to invest in small group learning activities, but important for us is that there's some sort of presentation that the general public and community can experience. So if you have production workshops where you're interfacing with the public and artists and creative workers and other creative talents, that's great, but make sure it culminates in some sort of culminating presentation that's open to a wider audience.
Thanks, Ben.
Brenda, we also have a raised hand if we have the time now.
Sure.
Renato, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
So my question I have for you guys, I'm from the San Fernando Valley LGBTQ Center, So we host our annual Pride celebration. We do a huge festival arts that will count with us. That will be okay for us for this grant.
Sure. Could you tell me if that's an indoor or outdoor project?
It's outside event. It starts from Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, that sounds like it would fit into the festival category. Do you block off the street?
Yes, we close the whole street.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've done this project before, yes?
Yes, this will be our third annual.
Great. Sounds like a perfect festival project.
Okay.
We have a few more raised hands.
Okay.
Marianne, you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, I had a question in regards to our organization. Sorry, my dog's in the background. Our organization. So this year we did a festival for to celebrate the Filipino culture. My program is Kabataan Culture, and essentially it's about teaching children how to speak Tagalog and also to learn about the Philippine culture in general. My question is the festival that we did, what we had was we brought in different vendors throughout the event who also had their own, like we had somebody that had like a movie premiere in regards to the Filipino culture. And then within our program, we taught the children and the families to kind of learn a language, the Filipino language, and then also do a little bit of a workshop. Would that something that we can also do? That was indoor, but that was because we were limited in where we can have the event. And for this grant, we were hoping to make it bigger. We brought in about like maybe 800 people to come out to the event. And that was also a fundraiser. Is that something that can be done with this grant as well?
Well, I have a couple questions for you. First, is your mission arts-based?
Yes, in regards to them learning how to learn about a culture. So we do teach workshops but it's specific to the Filipino culture. Like we'll do arts and crafts with the kids, but then we also teach language on top of that.
Okay, so workshops and festivals are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do this event indoors and it has several workshops, I would recommend you do it under an artistic project in the culture history discipline.
Okay.
Why don't I go ahead, Muna? We're getting very specific questions on type projects. So I'd like to just take a moment and let you know we have 3 types of festivals. We have 2 different categories outside of our traditional discipline categories. The first one we touched on a little bit, sequential arts in school learning, culminating in after-school public events. Sail Cape, very specific to arts education curriculum being for the application. Skill building workshops culminating in an after-school presentation. These are projects that involve sequential standards aligned with youth arts education activities, most often taking place during the school day and culminating with at least one community marketed public event taking place outside of school hours. This is to say that public schools are not always accessible to the general population to enter and watch a performance. This is a show that I would be able to go see. This is a culminating event that the community can go see. Arts education proposals must be accompanied by a curriculum and 2 sample lesson plans that demonstrate the deep learning conveyed in a single session or set of sessions. The other category we have not touched on yet is field advocacy and sector learning, FASL. This is to support business training, business association networking, field-specific conferences, and arts industry advocacy, wherein artists and arts managers are learning rather than performing. Applicants in this category do not themselves present the artistic projects, but instead they coordinate field building activities and forums. Here is the cycle. So this gets down into the nitty-gritty of the specific disciplines outside of the 3 we just touched on. This is the year for dance, music, theater, multidisciplinary, organizations festivals with an performing arts focus, and for Sail Cape performing arts focused applications. You are more than welcome to submit a proposal this year if you are off cycle, what we call our odd year application deadlines for this year. That is, if you are a business education or field building program in FASL, design visual, literary arts, media arts, traditional folk arts, culture history, festival that is non-performing arts focused, or a Sail Cape program with non-performing arts focus. So to answer the Filipino festival question, really focus on your mission and whether or not you are traditional folk focused, or if you are dance, music, multidisciplinary focused in your programming. And the big difference in these two, even in odd year applications, is what we call a cycle. So for the grants department, even your applicants this year will be eligible, should their project be funded, they will be eligible for a second year of funding. For the odd year applicants for applying this year, they are, if funded, only eligible for 1 year of funding. They would then need to reapply next fall to get on cycle for their discipline to be eligible for 2 years of funding. Muna, I'm imagining we have some more questions.
Yes, we had one raised hand from Michael Diaz. Michael, if you want to unmute yourself.
Michael, you are still muted, so don't forget to unmute yourself.
We can't hear you at the moment.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Our cycle of, first of all, we do the screening of class Spanish language, Latinx films, Latino and Latinx. And we have generally 4 programs throughout the year, one of them of which is the Student Film Festival. We are now doing some of them virtually. So can you go over again those numbers? Because I don't think that all of the 4 programs will be on site. Maybe only 1 or possibly 2, and the others will be virtual.
So Michael, I'm imagining that you might think that you would need to apply as a festival.
We've been applying as media arts, which is
Yes.
media presentations.
Yes, you would need to apply as media arts, and certainly with COVID right now, we are more than willing to allow online programming. The one thing that DCA does require with online programming is the ability of the organization to report back the viewership to DCA. This is so that DCA may quantify who is benefiting from these grants in the city of Los Angeles. We need to know the viewership of the city of Los Angeles residents. So online or in person, on site or virtually, make that clear in your application if you are going to do online. There is a place in the application where you can check, yes, I will be doing online services, and you will then be prompted to answer some questions regarding your online metric collection.
Yeah. Well, the person who handles this for us, it's our web administrator. The information she got from viewers was just from where, but not specifically Los Angeles. It just, by the way, we got viewers from all over the world. We got some from Germany, we got some from Pakistan, New York, Pennsylvania, and of course Los Angeles. Well, it's USA. It doesn't break down to city. It just goes to USA.
Okay, well, for moving forward, DCA is requesting that each organization provide a mechanism by which they can collect the information necessary on the metrics for the city of LA residents. That's either through a survey, having people register to view the online content, through giving their zip code or other information, so that you're able to understand your viewership as well as report back to DCA your viewership from the City of LA. So there are very simple things that organizations can do in order to get the information of the viewer location.
Okay.
I'd like to add a note as well. I think Michael brings up a good point. I think our entire audience can appreciate. Don't be, make sure you're aware of the distinction of whatever you're calling your project. It may have the word festival in it, but it may not be a festival to us for our purposes. There's many projects that we support that happen to have festival in their title. Think dance, think film festivals, think theater festivals, but those are actually best suited for us as artistic projects.
Yeah.
And that's because a festival for us is a specific type of project where you're not just showcasing your own artists and your own creative workers, you're involving others. You're involving other organizations, arts organizations, you're involving other social service agencies, you're involving other non-arts organizations, and have a wide range of festival type of activations. Think food, think vendors. It's not many things that you might call a festival is not a festival for us. So be mindful of that when you're selecting which box to check off.
Yes,
Right.
just like the workshops sample we had it earlier.
Exactly.
Yes, because technically ours is not a festival. It's just the screening of, let's say, film X, and that's
Yes.
it.
Yes, we have many film festivals in our portfolio, but they are all in media arts,
Okay.
Artistic project.
which is an artistic project. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank-
Everything listed here is considered an artistic project outside of festivals.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Couple more raised hands. Allison, I'd like to invite you to unmute yourself and pose your question.
Hi, Allison.
Oh, hi, everybody. Hi, Ben. You know what? I might just send you an email, Ben, because I got a little confused and it's a specific question. But I did have, you know what? I did have another question that might be good for the whole group in that for artistic projects, how confirmed do the artists need to be when you are including them in your application?
Well, Ben, do you want to take this or should I answer?
I'm happy to. It's a great question, Allison. We love it when you have when there's confidence and clarity in your proposal when you're specifying who's booked for many months in the future. But we recognize that's not necessarily super realistic. So our recommendation is that you get as close as possible by the time you're submitting this your proposal by August 29th. And we understand that you're pitching activities many months in the future, so it's subject to change. The panel knows that you're proposing something in your narrative. You have a list of artists that you hope to book and plan. That's very helpful. But they also will be able to see the list of artists you've enrolled and booked from your most recent iteration. So with those two points of data together, you're going to leave the peer panelists with some impression of your track record of recruiting terrific talent and how likely it is you're able to realize what you're proposing. So if you have an idea of who you're going to book, that's certainly fine for us. Just be transparent about it in your proposal. What's important is that you're conveying some thematic focus, some topics, some themes that the panel can assess. You don't want to leave it totally up in the air, like, oh, we don't know who we're going to book yet. Step it up beyond that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, if I could just add on to what Ben just said, it is always a good idea if you are forecasting to put the artists who have already performed previously in those bios so that the panel can see the terrific talent that you've recruited in the past. And I just would like to bring up at this point, this grant program does not fund open calls. So if in fact you are proposing something that has a contest or has an open call for artists to do storm drain painting or whatever it may be, that is not something you should propose unless you have already selected the artists that will be participating in the project.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brenda. The timing can play an important role here. If your process for selecting artists depends on some sort of solicitation, it's important that you have already done it so that by the time you're writing a proposal, you have something to tell the panel about who's been selected, who's been identified, who's been adjudicated, and so forth.
Yes. Any more questions?
One raise hand from Carla. Carla, please unmute yourself and ask your
Hi,
question.
Carla.
Carla, you may unmute yourself and ask your question. It looks like Carla stopped raising her hand, but we have a question from Arroyo Arts.
Okay.
The person representing Arroyo Arts, there you go.
Yeah. Sorry. I didn't know how to change my name. So back to the open call, is that something that's new? Because our organization has always done our projects with an open call. So what we do is we arrange for the artistic director who will have the vision for the event, the project, but then in 2 years we'll put out a call for artists. So is that new, or has that always been something and no one's ever told me?
It's always been there. And I would say that if your cycle doesn't match your application, that you give us enough information on the previous iterations to say it's moving forward in the same trajectory, and that here's the timeline, here are the artists that were previously chosen, the same caliber, the same quality, the same artistic director is selecting, etc. Give us enough backstory so that we're not questioning the timing of your unknown artist.
Because it is in the cycle. I mean, we're a multidisciplinary, so we are in the cycle.
So when will the artistic director decide?
In 2024, when we do the project. I mean, that's how we've always historically done it. We've never been any different than that. So
then I would say this application won't have those applicants on there. So you need to let us know who's previously done this.
Okay, and there's so is that part of the like who I paid last year kind of thing, or?
Yeah, maybe we should have an in-depth conversation on this offline, because it's very specific to your organization, and I'd like to give it more time.
Yeah, well, and I'll provide the general guidance that the most ideal, most competitive proposals have very clear artists identified and proposed. Right. Absent that, it's important that you show you funded in the past, you outline a clear process by which artists are selected, so that you're giving the panel something to adjudicate.
Right.
I'd like to invite Carla to unmute yourself and pose your question.
Hi, sorry about that. I just had a question about the multidisciplinary category. The organization I work for does a series of workshops, but not for the same audiences. It's for different locations and schools. So I was wondering if our program or our project would fall under multidisciplinary, or should we just select a certain practice like dance or music or theater to apply?
Can you tell me the disciplines with which your organization does workshops?
Yeah, it's visual arts, it's performing arts like dance, hip hop, jazz. There's like videography, photography, literary, I think drama. And so it's just like a variety of things.
I would concentrate the application on the performing arts that the organization does workshops for this application cycle.
Okay.
Do those take place during the school day or after school?
During the school day.
Okay, you might want to investigate the Sale Cape category, especially if your organization uses a curriculum for the workshops.
Yes, we do.
I would investigate the Sale Cape to see if that matches what you would be applying for.
Okay. All right, I'll look into that. Thank you.
No questions, Brenda.
Okay, moving on. Here are the priorities of the Cultural Grant Program. Now, Free or low-cost arts activities and events that are open to the public is welcome, welcome, welcome. But please do not mistake free or low cost with your project. In the application, you will be asked to calculate a cost per head. This is not what you are charging for admission. This is a cost per head ratio between your financial request and the number of people served. And this is going to be determined by how deep your narrative needs to speak to the level of change of what is your participants plus your audience. DCA wants to support a variety of artistic projects, some of which are going to be wide-reaching and low cost. Driving by a mural is not going to be the same deep, impactful experience as a 12-week workshop for youth, culminating in a final performance that shows the growth. So please be mindful of your budget of your program. The priority of activities and events taking place in arts underserved council districts can't be emphasized enough. Sometimes the geography of your project can be as important as the constituency your project is serving. For DCA, we have arts underserved and arts overserved districts. Our underserved districts in need of more art services are Council Districts 3, Council District 6, Council District 7, Council District 8, Council District 9, and Council District 12. Those are our most arts underserved areas. And another priority here, projects with a capacity enrollment and attendance that serve their constituencies. We love to see projects that are growing, that want to get a 400-seat auditorium for their audience. We love to see 400 attendees. So please be sure to match your enrollment and attendance with your capacity building. We also prioritize projects that develop jobs for artists and creative workers. Number one priority for us is to pay artists. Also means arts administrators, so please don't forget, it takes a village to get these things going on. And we're very appreciative of all artists and arts workers involved in these projects. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. We have a few questions. I'd like to invite Renato and then Carla to unmute themselves and ask their questions.
Great.
Yes, I have a question. So an example, our event, we charge $20 to get into the event, okay? Then also, that was one of, if that's okay, that's the way, we expect more than almost 5,000 people who attend to this event. This is what we're expecting for next year. And then,
okay.
And then the other one question is that District 7 and District 6, that's the area that we work a lot. That's where we're trying to bring the art in that community. So my question is, the event will be on District 7, but also we're going to work together with a District 6 because they're around the same area where we're going to have the event. Is that okay for us to put that to districts?
So to answer your first question, low cost, $20, perfectly fine. For us, for DCA, free and low cost, we equate with the price of a movie ticket. So around $20 for 5,000 people meets our criteria. Regarding the 2 council districts, that's fine. I would delineate, I'm not sure your project, but if you're doing it twice, 1 in 6, 1 in 7, please just be specific about why you're doing 2 different council districts for the same project.
Yeah. I'll add, because I think I recall your proposed project, Renato, is going to be in our festival category. A couple of important things. Many festivals offered and sponsored by DCA offer services for free. So do know it can be a competitive disadvantage if you are charging a ticket price of $20 across the board. It's certainly eligible, but think about how that might compete in a competitive process. Perhaps you can structure a project that underwrites a portion of your attendees, for example, that can attend for even cheaper prices for students, for elders, seniors, so forth. You might want to come up with a strategy that might still make your project feasible and make sense financially, but still offer a competitive edge. Another thing regarding geography. Typical festivals take place in a single day, evening, afternoon, or weekend. It's not typically common for a festival to take place across multiple spaces or locations. So you might want to assess what element of a longer period project you can compartmentalize and frame as a specific project, a specific day that you're going to frame a proposal around. Most festivals take place in a single day, maybe a weekend. So if you're envisioning two distinct locations over a span of a weekend, that might also work in the festival category.
Yeah, great information, Ben. I was envisioning an artistic project.
Yeah, because we're on Fridays, we're gonna have a free admission for the youth, for arts festival, all that. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we have the art festival, but we have concert music, all that performance. And then we do another event in the District 6 with to celebrate Pride Month. So we do different things. So that's what I was really concerned.
So great. I think a strategy to propose two distinct events can also work, because we do welcome projects that are scalable in nature. If you don't get your entire grant request, and let's say you get half of your grant requests, we would love to be able to go back to you and say, the panel recommended directing the DCA money towards sponsoring the event that takes place in District 7. So you'll still have something that you can work with despite the possibly reduced limit award.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just like to point out that organizations are allowed two proposals, one artistic and one festival. Typically, the festival has a non-arts partner.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a question that might be that might interest our audience. It's from Jennifer. Jennifer is asking, we have not confirmed the concert venue yet. Can we specify a district in the application and change it later if needed?
That's a great question. Short answer would be no. These are very specific to council districts. Our goal is to provide all 15 council districts with arts and cultural services. The applications are scored based on the council district geographic and demographic profiling of the location, constituency served, and so to change that after the application would not be possible. Highly recommended that you use your best efforts to locate multiple venues in the council district you will be putting into your application. Our hope is that you've done this project before in the same council district and have a relationship with a venue. And to that end, we would hope that you would seek another venue based on your history in the council district. Ben, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, do understand that geography factors in our selection and scoring, and I'll go over that before we jump into the application. It's problematic for us if you're proposing to do services in South LA where we want many more projects. Brenda, the next slide shows a map. We can visualize.
Yes.
We can visualize this. Everything in those purple areas are areas where we want more services.
Yes, those are the areas. Yes, I outlined earlier. Council districts.
If you're telling us something's in South LA, you're going to do wonderful stuff in West Hills and Porter Ranch, but then you come back to us, many months in the future. Oh, actually, we have this awesome theater space in Hollywood. We can't allow for that without significantly reducing your recommended grant award.
And Ben, as a follow-up to that, Jennifer asked, can we put 3 districts in the application, but later do 2 districts?
Yes, and we'll go into this in the application, Jennifer. We ask for up to 4 targeted council districts that you'd like to focus on.
And please understand, if you put underserved council districts in your application, those will be the first considered for contracting.
Yeah, great point, Brenda. Thank you.
So just to reiterate, what we're seeing here is the map of the big old elephant ear of Los Angeles. Up at the top, you can see 7, 12, 6, 3, and down below we see 8 and 9. Council District 15, you see, goes all the way down to Long Beach, and Council District 11 stretches out around Santa Monica. We have some unincorporated areas of East Los Angeles. Please do be in touch with us. Anything outside of the city limits is not eligible. Big part of your application is your SMU Data Arts report. There's a minimum of 2 years of your data arts profile required. 3 or more years is recommended. If you haven't started this data art report, I highly recommend you start it today. The grant request will be from your data art report, and it's going to be the line that says total revenue less in kind from your most recent data arts profile, and you're going to use this number to calculate your allowable grant request. Ben is going to go over that in a little more depth when we do the application portion. Okay. Any questions, Luna?
No question.
Okay. This is a very text-heavy slide, but very informative. This tells you the amount of your allowable request within your budget size category. For instance, if you are a small organization, that is an organization up to $100,000 in annual revenue, you may request up to 20% of your last completed fiscal budget with a maximum cap of $10,000. If you are requesting $10,000, you are proposing to us a $20,000 project. DCA LA Cultural Grant Program is a matching one-to-one grant program. This means any project you're requesting funding for, you are going to match the funding one-to-one minimum. These are mostly reimbursable grants. Therefore, you will be invoicing for the funds allocated, and you may do that one of 2 ways. You may request the entire grant amount at the end of your project, or once you receive your fully executed contract, you may request up to 50% of your grant. So if you are awarded a $10,000 grant, you would be able to invoice for $5,000 as soon as you get your contract to pay for upcoming or already expended expenses. Festivals and parades have a different calculation for the allowable request. Please do read these over in our guidelines. There's a lot of great information on those pages and the drop-down menus. Please be sure you use the right-sized budget and right-sized organization budget for your request, as well as your project budget. If you are an organization that has a $100,000 budget, please do not submit a request for a project that is $200,000. It's not feasible, and it's not something that the panel would easily be able to comprehend, given that the organization is half the size of the project. Do we have any financial questions, Muna?
Let me see. We have a raise hand from Renato. Renato, you would like to ask your question?
Oh, no, I'm okay.
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 All right. So the maximum allowable request ties greatly to your data arts report. And please know, with COVID, so much has happened. It's really important for us to get a financial picture of where your organization is right now today. Please don't submit old data arts reports that look favorably on your annual budget in the hopes that you can increase your grant request. So here we have the page I was just referencing. The Applying tab is going to give you complete instructions and show you how to prepare and submit a proposal into our SurveyMonkey Apply program. All the other drop-down tabs have terrific information, full of great ideas and information on your application and best practices. Okay, the timeline. So step 1 is now. You need to register for SurveyMonkey Apply or log into your account. Step 2, you need to fill out and submit the online SurveyMonkey Apply application to the Cultural Grant Program. That's going to include your data arts report and some more uploads that Ben's going to show you when he goes over the application itself. Step 3, by September 2nd, you need to print a hard copy of your application, the signed certification form by your non-compensated board members. Digital signatures are acceptable, and you're going to mail that packet to our office. Step 4 is not until May or June of next year, and that is due to the fact that the city budget is not announced until April, when we know how much the DCA allocation is from the city. Ergo, we know how much we can award in grants. So we will send out notifications at that time to the applicants on funding and also grant award amounts. Step 5, should you be awarded, your contract will start July 1st of 2023. Your projects have a year and should be completed by June 30, 2024. All right,
Brenda,
and with that,
we
yep.
have a raised hand. Allison, we can invite you to unmute yourself and pose your question.
Hi, just a question about the data arts. You said new versus old data arts. I would assume it's just the newest data arts report from your most completed fiscal year.
Yes, depending on the end of your fiscal year, we will be 2021. If you can get 2022, even better. If you are unable, I recommend having your treasurer sign off on a report that is a most recent budget, a P&L, a QuickBooks report, or something else to give us the most accurate picture of your current financials.
As well as the data arts report from the previous fiscal year.
Yeah, I mean, the more financial information, the better. The broader picture you can paint for the panelists. They really do go over the data arts report, and they really take to heart budget notes. They love to see the story of how you made it through COVID. They like to see you explain in narrative form any variances greater than 20%. It's a vital part of the application and looked on favorably the more information you're able to give. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I'm not 100% familiar yet with the application process, so I'll just find where to upload those additional financials other than the data arts.
Yes, once we get into the application, it'll become more apparent.
Thank you.
But Allison, feel free to email us for further information too.
Thank you.
Great. And before we move on to the next section, we have a raised hand from Laura Larson. Laura, if you would like to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, regarding the financials, our fiscal year end is a calendar year from January to December, so our most recent financial is 21. Now, if you're saying you would like some more information about this year, we're only halfway through the year, so a P&L would not show the whole year. Is that what you're asking for, or do you want budget that's estimated?
No, if you're able to get your most recent financial 21 up, that is your most recent.
Yeah.
If you would like to include a P&L, if you would like to include any budget approved by the board or anything else to give a current picture, more than welcome. Not necessary, but really important to have budget notes for any variances in the data arts.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, shall we jump into the application side?
I think Renato has a raised hand.
Yes, I have a question. So, like I said, this is my first time applying for this. We do have the budget from this year, the event that we did, all that. That is will be perfect for us to present that to you guys.
I'll respond to this one, Renato. There are two exceptions to the data arts report, right? We want all applicants to have a data arts report and profile ready for the application. Two exceptions. If you're a brand new arts organization applying in our emerging arts organization category for much smaller grants, you don't necessarily have to have a data arts report. The other important exception is our festival applicants who are non-arts organizations. So if you're a social service agency, a housing organization, some other community-based nonprofit without an arts-focused mission who's proposing to work with an arts organization or arts experts to curate an arts festival, you won't have a data arts report. So in lieu of a data arts report, you'll have an opportunity to upload something else. We request 990s or a series of current financial statements signed by your board treasurer to outline your organization's fiscal health and cash operating revenue from your most completed fiscal year.
So just to reiterate what Ben said, emerging organizations are those with $20,000 or less for their annual fiscal revenue. And the only other exception are non-arts partners.
Great. All right, so let's jump into the second half of our webinar day where we do a deep dive into what the application process looks like. That last slide Brenda left us with gets you back to our guidelines page, which you should be familiar with. This is how you register for today's webinar. And it has all the instructions for preparing a proposal to us. But before even clicking into the instructions and the SurveyMonkey apply link, I always recommend all our grant writers to click under preparation, going under our panel review process. So you have a better understanding of who it is who's going to be reading your proposal and what you're going to be scored around. So we use a peer panel process here at the city. Brenda, Luna, and I will not be participating in scoring your proposals. We have a recruitment effort to bring in experts. These are our practicing artists, arts administrators, educators, enthusiasts, who we're going to combine and recruit to create diverse peer panels who represent the expertise best suited to adjudicate your proposal. But towards the bottom of this page is very important for all of our savvy grant writers in attendance today. These are the scoring criteria that's used when evaluating proposals. Most of our applicants are going to fall under our small and mid-sized organizations. So you can see the various criteria that we'll be looking at. A quick takeaway we're very proud of highlighting here. Artistic merit is not a big portion of the assessment of your proposal. There's a wide range of other things we look at: admin capacity, geography and demographic, as Brenda outlined, whether or not your project is a good idea or whether or not it demonstrates really good innovation, community impact, and relevance. So let me give a quick review of some of the considerations you should think about here. Admin capacity is the presentation of your proposal. It can be as simple as the typos and grammatical errors that are not in your proposal. It outlines some admin capacity to put together a cogent, great proposal to the city. This is also where your data arts report, where you can demonstrate some level of organizational stability or growth in the most ideal case, contributes to your admin scoring. This is where the administrators and your staff, your board expertise and diversity can also speak to your organization's admin capacity. Artistic merit this is where you get to brag about your artists and their training and their capacity and the quality of the artistic work that you've produced in the past. Geography and demographics, as Brenda has outlined earlier, we care very much about this. Projects that are taking place in the North Valley, Northwest Valley, and South LA are going to score much higher in this criterion than activities taking place in arts-rich areas of the city, such as downtown LA, Hollywood, and so forth. Ideas and or innovation. We're very clear about this and or. We love innovative, cool, risky, avant-garde concepts and projects, but we also appreciate really good, tried and true ideas, that have demonstrated great, success in the past. So you're scored there too. Impact is the extent to which you are serving your community, the extent to which you are filling your seats of your audience and so forth. Relevance talks about how well your project is aligned with the DCA's funding priorities that Brenda outlined earlier. And to recap, how well does your project offer free and low cost activities to the public? To what extent does your project support and create jobs in our creative economy? We think of our grant program as a job creator. That's how we brag about our grant program. We love projects that involve paying artists, arts administrators, technical staff, production staff, and other creative workers. Slightly different scoring criteria for folks who are applying under our FASL project category or our festivals category, or for our really big, large budget, extra large budget organizations. We take artistic merit out of the equation here because it factors less in this assessment. More important when you're in this category is your ability to show really excellent administrative capacity and geography, certainly, and the partnerships and relationships you're engaging and incorporating in your proposed project. We love to see projects in these categories who emphasize lots of partnerships with other arts organizations, artists, non-arts organizations, social service agencies, and so forth. So now that you have a sense of who your audience is and what criteria they're going to be rated against, let's take a look at what the application looks like. So under the Applying tab, you'll see a link to SurveyMonkey Apply. SurveyMonkey Apply is the online platform through which you will prepare and submit a proposal to us. So let's click on that link, and it'll take you to the DCA's SurveyMonkey Apply landing page. And you can see right off the bat, we have our cultural grant program up and live. Application is due August 29th. If you're brand new to the system, the very first thing you're going to do is click on the register button. You're going to have to create a new account. What you'll find is you're going to create a new account here, but it's important that you register as an organization. Because, as Brenda outlined earlier, our cultural grant programs open only to organization applicants, not individual artists. So this is where you create an account. Make sure you set yourself up as an organization. If you're a returning applicant, all you have to do is log back into SurveyMonkey Apply. It'll take you to your landing page. And here's what's tricky. Right now, my particular test account here is set up as both as an individual and organization. And you can see which hat you're wearing by looking in the left-hand portion here. You can see it's an individual's name, so it's not my organization yet. It's important that I select the organization I'm affiliated with before I'm able to apply for a grant program. So once you've put on the other hat that you're now applying and representing an organization, you can click on programs up on top here, and you'll see the cultural grant program up and running. Click on more, and you'll have a green apply button. I actually have a pending proposal we can look at together. So if you don't have one yet, just click on apply, and it'll start a brand new one. But let's take a peek at one I have in progress, and we'll use that as our visual aid for today's session. Once you start a brand new application, you're going to go to this landing page. Think of this as your checklist of your to-do items, and as a way to track your progress towards preparing a complete package. The nice thing about SurveyMonkey Apply is it will not let you submit anything until you've uploaded and entered all the required information. And you can keep track of your progress by monitoring your checklist here. The very first item is the organizational grant proposal. So that's the meat of your proposal. That's where a lot of your content's going to go. And think of everything else as supplementary attachments and tasks. You can keep track of your progress by acknowledging these little icons. Anything with a green check mark indicates a step you've completed. Anything with this half moon icon shows something you've started but haven't quite completed yet. And anything with this grayed out circle is something you haven't done just yet. All right, so let's jump into the top. Grant proposal is the very first thing. This has all of your basic organization information, your narrative responses, and your project budget. So think of them as 3 pages. This first page we're looking at now kind of has basic information about your organization. I lied, that's the second page. Let me go to the first page so we're on the same page. All right. Here you go. And and then we'll fill out this information together. A good point of advice is we always encourage folks to have a sense of what these responses are, what these questions are, pardon me, before even jumping into this. If you go back to the main guidelines page, the instructions page, there is a PDF link where you can download a preview of the questions you're about to see. The good thing about that, especially with the narrative responses, is that you can prepare all your responses in advance. And we recommend you to do this so you can take advantage of Microsoft Word's copy editing tools such as spell check, grammar check, and importantly, word count, character counts. We'll find that the narrative responses are capped with character count limitations. And that's pitfall number one. What can often happen is when people prepare their responses, they're copy pasting back into their proposal. They're not monitoring what that character count can do. It can actually truncate your response. So you may be submitting a proposal to us that doesn't complete all your ideas because it's past the character count limitation. All right, so page one of the proposal. Basic information about your organization. This is self-explanatory. I'll just call out a couple of things. Very important that your very first item is that you're naming your organization using your legal IRS name. Go straight to your IRS nonprofit determination letter and just copy paste how it's listed there. Just making sure it's listed as all caps, please. Second field is where you can give us your common name, popular name if it's different from your IRS name. Include a mailing address if your physical address is different. Important that this physical address confirms your eligibility. Remember, as Brenda noted, your organization must be based somewhere in Los Angeles County. This is not some satellite office, not some sort of tertiary office. This is the headquarters of your organization. It needs to be in the LA area. Contact person, this is who would be receiving all the emails and communications from DCA with respect to your proposal. And then we talk about a little bit of detail about your organization here. Give us your budget size. Which category are you entering this competition under? You can see there's some overlap between our small and mid and our mid and large. That's intentional. That's something that we ask our panelists to consider. We ask panelists to consider how an organization sees themselves. Are they a small organization still kind of getting up to the next level of mid, or are they a mid trying to kind of floating in this new level? It factors into how they're measuring organizations against one another. In our example, I'm going to consider myself a small arts organization, and I am a theater-focused organization. You can see that the disciplines marked with asterisks denote the categories that would be eligible for up to 2 years of funding consideration with this proposal. This goes back to our slide of what's on cycle and off cycle. Next thing has some basic information, financial information about your proposal. First thing is your grant request. So there was that very lengthy, wordy slide that we went over earlier. You will have studied that by now and have come up with a grant request that you know is eligible. And you have one last way to double check that you're including an eligible grant request, and that is our allowable grant request calculator. You can click on that. This, of course, requires that you've done some bit of homework already. Number one, you need to have your total revenue less in kind from the prior year ready at hand, specifically the total revenue less in kind as listed on your data arts report, or your 990 if you're an emerging organization or a festival non-arts organization. Second bit of important homework to have done is to at least have a sketch of what your total project's going to cost. We need to understand what your project budget is before we determine what your maximum allowable request is. So let's try this out. I am a small organization. Let's say I had a budget of around $80,000. Even smaller. I had $40,000 in revenues in my most recently completed fiscal year. I am proposing to do a theater project where I'm going to do a bunch of new presentations of a new theatrical production. So that falls under our artistic project. And my project budget, I'm estimating to be something around $16,000. Okay, so clicking this button shows me that I'm allowed to request up to $8,000. So please use this tool. A common pitfall number two, an applicant will throw in an application where they're requesting way more than they're allowed to, or they're requesting something that doesn't jive based on the mathematics of their proposed project budget. This tool will help avoid that for you. Okay, $8,000. That works for me. I'm going to close that window, and in fact, I'm going to request my maximum $8,000. And I'm a good applicant, done my homework, completed my data arts report. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm reporting $40,000 in my cash revenues in my most recently completed fiscal year. Artistic project, as I mentioned. And this next question asks, kind of what's my primary purpose for this project? I'm a theater company. I'm interested in creating free or low-cost presentations of my productions and encouraging community dialogue. Pick 2 or more that you feel like really captures the essence of your project. Now we got some geography questions here. My organization, let's say I'm based in downtown LA, so that's Council District 14. If you don't know which council district you're in, you can use this neighborhood info tool where you can type in an address in the city of LA, and it will give you a bevy of information based on an address. So let's punch in DCA type quarter 021 Figueroa. And I'm gonna get a lot of information back. And I can see that my city council is District 14. So that would be the box I'm gonna check off in that question. Another helpful tool for assessing council districts is an interactive Google map. And you can go there by going to tinyurl.com/LA council districts. It's that map we saw earlier in that slide presentation. But here's a map that you can, in contrast to that prior tool, you can actually zoom in and interact and search for specific addresses or venues here. So if you're weighing possible venues for where your project's going to take place, this is a great tool to use. So let's say I'm thinking about going to CSUN and take advantage of that awesome, this is Soraya, right? All right. Saw that correctly. Come on. We were doing this earlier yesterday, and here we go. So I can see if I zoom out here, you can see that CSUN is based in Council District 12. It's a great tool to use. Do know the city council boundaries were slightly tweaked as of January of this calendar year. So there were some slight shifts from what folks may be accustomed to. Notable is Council District 5 has now absorbed all that stretch along Wilshire where all of our museums are. You have LACMA there, you have the Academy Museum, you have Peterson. That was previously Council District 4, now Council District 5. So there have been some shifts in the map boundaries. So do take advantage of those mapping tools when checking off your boxes here. The second question asks where I'm proposing to do my services. So be very thoughtful here. We have 15 council districts in the city. Your project needs to take place in one of those. Or online. We'll talk about that in a second. And think about your live in-person activities. If you're thinking about your portfolio of services and it happens all throughout the city, zero in on the areas that you think would be most competitive and a good fit for your project proposal, up to 4. In my case, let's say I'm thinking of, I'm going to do projects here in downtown where my organization's based, but I'm also going to do services out in the valley, in CSUN, in that example. So I'm marking off Council District 12 and 14 for downtown LA. Now, if your project is exclusively online, primarily kind of broadcast in nature, so this is perhaps an online festival, a media project where you're broadcasting via podcast or the television or radio waves, that's when you can select the All button. Very important here, if you select this button, we're going to ask extra work of you that in one of the attachments, you need to be able to articulate to DCA and the panelists what strategies you've used in the past and plan to use to ensure that your viewership has some primary basis here in the Los Angeles region. Important as well is that you remember that the activities need to be produced in the city. Okay, these are locally sourced funds to make these grants happen. We need to be able to invest those monies back into our region. Start and end dates, give us your planned project period. Your project shouldn't span the entire fiscal year of July 1 through June 30th. Most of our projects are typically started and completed within 3 to 4 or 6 months. So in my case, I'm envisioning a series of presentations that will take place in the spring of 2023. So I'm going to enter a project start date of March 1 going into April 15th. Impact of proposed services. These are your key project metrics that you're planning. I am envisioning a staff and creative workforce in my project of around 40 people, inclusive of volunteers and paid people. And my run of free or low-cost matinees, I expect to get an audience around 600 people. So those numbers will be very important later. Make sure those are a good estimate for what you're proposing to do. Last question here on this page just outlines who your target audience is based on these boxes. I am envisioning a series of matinees that will reach out to adults, artists, involve artists, and make targeted outreach to low-income persons and youth and seniors. And be thoughtful about the boxes you're selecting here, because you will be asked in the follow-up narrative question what your specific strategy and experience is as it relates to these special constituencies you're checking off. And with that, that's page 1 of the proposal. Always click on save all your work, and then we can go.
And we have a couple questions.
Sure.
I think you meant you're going to do it in the spring of 24.
Yeah, thank you, Brenda. I appreciate it. Yeah, spring of 24.
Just
Thank
a couple questions. One is a little more elaboration on what administrative capacity means. And the second question is, does the character count include spaces or not? And if someone is off cycle, can they still apply?
Okay. Admin capacity, as I mentioned a few considerations there. It's think of it as the fit. It's almost like the fit and finish of your final proposal, right? Do you have comprehensive, cogent, concise responses to all the narratives? Does the math in your project budget make sense? Does it jive with this narrative scope of your services? Is there an alignment there? Does your board of directors represent a wide array of varied expertise that can lend itself and ensure project success? Is your data art up to date and current? That's an immediate check. The panelists, when they see a data art report that may be 2, 3, or even 4 years old, might read that as something that doesn't speak to really great admin capacity. And very simple things like typos and grammatical errors, that all impacts kind of like the way your proposal is perceived and is factored into your admin capacity. There was the question on, Brenda, remind me what the other questions were?
Character spaces, do they count?
Character spaces. I believe the character count includes spaces. I take it back. We actually clarify that. It's excluding spaces. Perfect. That answer right in front of me. And then next question, Brenda?
Off-cycle applicants, okay?
The answer, absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. We invite all eligible applications. The purpose of that slide where we spoke about off-cycle, on-cycle, it's just whether your proposal will be granted 1 year of funding consideration or up to 2 years of funding consideration. And that aligns with when we're convening the experts. We're not going to convene museum people this year. We're not convening visual arts experts this year. We're not convening our literary arts experts this year. Instead, we're convening our music folks, our theater folks, multidisciplinary folks, and our dance folks, our performing arts focused folks. And because we have those experts evaluating the proposals we're getting here, and if your proposal is in that category, your proposal is being reviewed by those best suited to evaluate it, and therefore we're able to give you up to 2 years of funding consideration with this one proposal. On the other hand, we're convening also a mixed panel of experts that may have one film festival person, one traditional folk art person, one literary arts person, and they'll be reviewing the off-cycle proposals. Because it's a mixed panel, we're going to ask you, if awarded funding, to reapply again next year to get on cycle. The dream scenario is you're applying to DCA only once every other year, depending on the artistic focus of your project. All right, moving along to the second page of the proposal is all the narrative responses. So first one, mission. This is one of the easiest questions you're going to get, because all you have to do is simply copy paste your board approved mission statement. Very important here, if you're applying for an artistic project, is that it's very clear to us and the panel that you have an arts and or cultural services focused mission. Not a secondary mission item, not a tertiary mission item. It should be along the very first sentence. So this should be one of the easiest questions to fill in. History programming, give us a little background of your organization, as well as some key major accomplishments taking place in the last couple of years. recent information is emphasized and valued here, especially given all the turbulent stuff that we've all gone through these last few years. Planning leadership, give the panelists a sense of your organization structure and how you're organized, how you ensure strong, sound governance, and what steps have you taken recently to get to where your organization wants to be around planning and leadership. Community core audience gives you an opportunity to tell us about the folks who you work with, who you target, who attends your events, who are you making outreach to. If you checked off boxes in that prior question that's outlined special constituencies, make sure that you're talking about your specific outreach and their prior participation in your programs in this question. So that's pitfall number 3. You might have checked off a box there, but then you spoke nothing about it here. So make sure you're drawing that line, connecting those dots, and telling that story for the panelists. Artistic policy gives you a chance to just give us a sense of how artistic decisions are made at your organization. Is it kind of one person up on top who's making all the directions? Is it more kind of like group done by group? Is it done by open call and solicitation and adjudication and panel assembly? This is where you give the panelists a sense of how those decisions are made. You'll find that these questions all have this asterisk or a sunburst next to it. And that's because these are questions that are shared by other local funders in our area. I believe the county uses these questions. There might be some private foundations even who might use these. So double check your other proposals that you may have written. You may have probably already prepared a response to this. It'll allow you to possibly save time there. All right. Now we go into the very important part of your proposal, and that's the project narrative. This is the tech specs of what exactly it is that you're pitching to DCA to do. We've tweaked this question a bit this year because we want to give you a very clear starting prompt. For those returning to DCA, you can recall if you're awarded a grant, the contract, the language we use for your contract is very specific. It is to produce and present X number of such and such. And Y number of such and such or another. It's as simple as that. We want you to start off your proposal to us similarly. So here's an example. Your first sentence should be something along the lines of, we are seeking DCA support to produce and present 6 free or low-cost Sunday matinees of a new theatrical production entitled The Haberdasher. These are matinees that will take place in spring of 24 at the Bosco Theater in West Hills. Project activities detailed below is just a subset of our organization's annual program of a wider range of community productions in other areas of the city. That last sentence there kind of underscores the fact that we are a project funder. DCA is not a program funder. Our grants are much too small to support a 12-month period of year-long activities. You need to come to us with a very specific project. As I mentioned earlier, typically spans 3 to 6 months in duration. So if you're a theater company, you have a wide range of shows planned for your season, select one and have an explanation for why that one's a good fit for DCA and focus on it. It's a project and not a program. Also important is that you use, you avoid marketing type of language here. This is how many characters for this one? I believe this is 3,000 characters, excluding spaces. That translates to around 500 to 700 words. Very limited space for you to get a very clear idea what exactly is you're pitching to do. So put on your journalistic kind of like lawyer type hat and be very almost dry in your description of your project. 6 free or low-cost Sunday matinees are going to take place in the spring at this location. We're gonna do. Here's our outreach plan. Here's our planned attendance. It's going to be around this topical focus, this theme. It's going to employ X number of artists and creative workers, et cetera, et cetera. Keep it as simple as that. Think like you're drawing up a spec sheet for your project. This is not a marketing piece. All right. The next question gives you a chance to brag about the last time you did this project. This is where you get to tell us about who attended, how many of them attended, how many artists did you pay, were you successful, what was done, how exactly can a city investment make it bigger, faster, stronger, better. This is where you get to tell us about those prior metrics and forecast what you plan to do if awarded funding. Next part of this section is where you get to tell us all about the fabulous creative workers and administrative staff who's going to make this project super successful. Please don't skimp on this. This is where you're really letting folks know that you have the talent needed to produce a quality and spectacular project. This will feed in strongly into your artistic merit criterion, as well as your admin capacity score, because you're outlining administrators as well as creative folks. So name, title, and 1 or 2 sentences about what their role is and what their background and what makes them fabulous. You even have the opportunity to add more than 5 if you have more than 5 people to tell us about. Okay, so that's the narrative portion of the proposal. The last page of the proposal is the numbers, the mathematics. We need your project budget. So remember, this is a project, we're a project funder. So ideally, in the prior page, you've given us the scope of a project, not a program. And so this is the numbers side of that. So you're going to give us the total cost of producing that event or project, and you're going to give us the associated revenues to make it a reality. Big pitfall here that often is that still happens way too frequently than it ought to, is forgetting to include in your proposal income the DCA grant request you're requesting from us. So maybe make that the very first thing you enter on this page. You're going to go straight to the revenue side, and I'm going to put in my $8,000 grant request that I'm factoring in for my project budget. And make sure those numbers match. What you're including here in your budget matches what you've outlined as your request on the very first page. But something I'll highlight here, this is not a stellar example of a project budget. You're going to do much more detailed notes and fleshed out expense categories. Just for the sake of illustration, I want to highlight that you take advantage of this budget notes field. Panelists love super detailed notes that accompany the dollar figure you're including here. So in this case, I'm envisioning matinees to be pay what you can, 600 people, maybe an average of $5 per person. That gets me $3,000 in earning income. Other revenue sources I have in mind here for this project, I have board member contributions, I have an $8,000 grant request from the city, and I can include my other grants that I'm anticipating that will contribute towards this project. So here's an example from LA County and California Arts Council. Donated materials, in-kind contributions are great also. And you can see that I have total income of $16,000. Next thing is you tell us how that $16,000 is going to be spent. So proposal expenses. Make sure your project has expenses where you're paying people. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, our grant program is a job creator, job sustainer. We love it when we see artists and other creative workers being compensated. So make sure to include all those fabulous people you bragged about and staff and artists. Make sure their cost is factored on this page. So here's a case where I have my artistic director, production staff calculated at X% of annual salary. That's a great detailed budget note to accompany the dollar figure including there. If I have 1099 contract workers, I factor them here non-salaried and include your note there. Another good use of budget notes is to make the panel understand that these are the areas where we feel like we really want the DCA money to go toward. That shows the panelists that you're thinking about the DCA's grant priorities, and you're putting that forth in your project budget. Contrast that, for example, catering and hospitality. If I didn't have a budget note here, like it might pose the question, oh, are they thinking of using grant funds to pay for this? And I hope not, because DCA money cannot be used to pay for things like catering and hospitality. So this is a great way to make it very clear that this is going to be covered by other sources. All right, other examples of expenses there, space rental, etc. And then you'll find that the form will actually do the tabulation for you. I have $16,000 in expenses, and that's good because I had forecasted $16,000 in revenue. Those two numbers need to match exactly. Another pitfall that you want to avoid is showing to the panel that you have a project budget that's operating at a deficit, very bad. Or on the other hand, the project budget that's operating with a surplus, which kind of counteracts the spirit of a nonprofit-based project. You want these numbers to exact dollar for dollar. And the other check you should be checking for yourself is that $16,000, how much did I request? I requested $8,000. It's exactly half, and that's allowable because your requested grant can never account for more than 50% of your project budget. Why? Because of that one-to-one matching requirement. Okay, I'll pause here for questions around the proposal narrative and budget.
Yes, thank you, Ben. We have a general question from Elena in the chat. What is the average number of applicants per year, and how many applications on average are being funded?
That's a great question. So for the first question, right now we have a grantee portfolio of approximately 350 organizations across the region. Because of our biannual application cycle, we get brand new applicants from approximately half of those folks. Or actually probably closer to, let's say, 2/3 one year, 1/3 the other year. The performing arts year, which is this year, is a very, very busy year for us. Most of our organizations tend to lean performing arts heavy. So we anticipate this year maybe getting close to 200 some proposals. And that's not accounting for any brand new organizations who haven't applied to us in the past. What happens, of course, is those who are not applying but are eligible for second year funding are collated into all of our evaluation scores that we'll arrive at ahead of our budget year that begins in May, June of next year. So quick answer is around 350 applicants who are afforded funding consideration. The second question is, how many are funded? It's a pretty good success rate, I want to say. I want to say, don't hold me to it, but I would say the majority of our applicants are granted some sort of funding. So the way it works is, once the city understands its project budget for the upcoming year, it gets funneled into a formula, and we're based on where folks are ranked in their respective panelists, rather ranked overall, you get a particular percentage of your grant request. So very, very rarely would one get 100% of their grant request. If I'm submitting a proposal here and it's an A+ proposal, I requested $8,000, if you recall. An A+ proposal in recent years, based on our competition level, and allocated budget, tends to garner around 70% of the grant request. Whereas a B level proposal might get closer to half of their grant request. I hope that provides some context of the level of competition. But we are very pleased to see that the vast majority of our applicants do get some level of funding.
And in relation to this, Jennifer is asking, what percentage of funding is awarded compared to the grant request?
Okay, so I touched on that a bit. It depends on how your organization is ranked and scored against in this competition. The folks in the very top are A+ students. They'll get, based on the recent competition levels and our budget allocations, A+ students tend to get around, I want to say on average, close to 70% of their grant request. Okay.
We have one raised hand from Renato. Renato, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sorry, I could just add one more thing to what Ben just said and let you know that each year, Department of Cultural Affairs has grant request proposals in the amount of $12 to $14 million. Very often, DCA is allowed and allocated $3.8 to $3.9 million for funding. Ergo, we want your project scalable. If we're not able to fund all 10 of your performances, we may be able to fund 4. So
there you go.
Please keep that in mind. And in terms of A and B students, without getting into the specifics of the panel process other than what you can find on the website, suffice to say, grade like a school teacher.
All right.
I have a question regarding about for staffing. If our staffing is on contracts, it's okay with that to put there?
Absolutely. Contract-based, non-salaried workers would be best factored under artists and performers non-salaried, or there should be another non-salaried. There should be another non-salaried person for administrators. It should be here somewhere. Come on. Maybe under programs, other professional fees. And Any of those would be good options. The upper part here, salaries and fringes, this primarily is for salaried W-2 personnel.
Ben,
But
we're at 2:30 right now, so maybe if we could just go over the supplementals.
Thanks. Yeah, I am mindful of time, so we'll get through this next section. Being mindful of time, I want to highlight one thing that's also automatically calculated for you here on the budget sheet is the cost per head. This takes the total cost of your project, in this case $16,000, and divides it by the number of project engagers I had entered 2 pages ago. That's my staff and my planned audience. If I divide $16,000 by that number, I think it was like 600 something, it gets me a cost per head of around $25 per person. For a project like this, performative in nature, it's a series of theatrical presentations, $25 just kind of hits around the sweet spot. But as Brenda outlined earlier, we welcome a wide range of project types where cost per head ratios can rightfully sit around, $5 or less, or maybe even $100, depending on the depth and scale of the work and impact you're proposing.
Not to be confused with the ticket price.
Of course. All right, so once you've completed those 3 pages of the proposal, you can mark that complete, and you get a very satisfying check mark back on the checklist. So that's the heavy lifting of the proposal. Everything else is stuff that you should have ready to go and you can simply upload. Data Arts Funder Report. Let me show you quickly what that looks like. Let's see here. So to get your Data Arts report, you're gonna go to culturaldata.org. It's the main page for Data Arts. You're gonna make sure you go there, and then you're gonna log in by clicking on that login button there. Once you're logged into your account, you should land on a similar page like this, where you have your surveys. You can see this sample has some outdated information. You're going to be much better than us. Yours is going to have fiscal 21 completed, fiscal 20 completed. And then once you've completed those surveys, you're ready to print out the City of LA's specific report that we want you to upload as part of your proposal. So to find that, you're going to click on Funder Reports and Grants in that menu bar there. And then the easiest way to find this is to simply search for us. Type in a search query something like Cultural Affairs. And once you do that, we should be one of the first ones listed. And in this case, we're listed there in second. We're the City of LA, Department of Cultural Affairs. You're going to click on the View button, where you have an opportunity to either generate or view a funded report for us. And this is an example we've already generated, so we're just going to view it. And when you click on that, it'll show you which years it's going to incorporate. And then when you click on that highlight button, it'll produce a report for you. And you know you have the right report because you'll see DCA's green logo there on the upper right-hand side. The Data Arts folks have updated the formatting of this a little bit, so their logo on the left-hand side looks different, but the DCA logo on the upper right-hand corner is constant. So make sure whatever report you're downloading has our logo on it. The county has their own report. Other municipal agencies may have their own report. Make sure you are uploading the DCA report in your proposal. That's a common pitfall as well. All right, let's go back to our SurveyMonkey Apply account. Let me go ahead and upload a file here so we can mark this as complete. I like marking things as complete because those check marks are really quite motivating. So let's get back to that. You can see that I have an optional financial snapshot and variance field here. This is where you might want to upload a current, like a mid-year financial status form, a P&L that gives additional context to the panelists. And by the way, for that prior item, the Arts Funder report, if you're a non-arts organization proposing a festival, or if you're an emerging arts organization, that's where you should upload your 990. We understand you will not have a Data Arts Funder report. Irs Designation letter is very easy, self-explanatory. It's an easy check mark. Updating a list of your organization's board of directors. No cheating here. We have a very specific board member Excel sheet. We want you to use our form. If you have already a prepared board list, please go through the steps of copy pasting their names, affiliations, and expertise onto our sheet before you upload it. And once you do that, you can check that as an item completed. All right, very important, artistic work samples. You can show us artistic documentation via 2 ways. You can give us links to videos and materials online, or you can submit static images. This is a performing arts year. We expect lots of applicants to be applying their dance, theater, music, and visual arts. Videos are really the best way to dazzle a peer panel. So be thoughtful about 3 links you can share, considerations to have. Make sure you're not uploading content that will span more than 3 to 5 minutes in duration. Panelists have lots and lots of proposals to go through, so be thoughtful of their time and be strategic about the specific items you're uploading. Recency is valued. We want to be able to see the most recent iteration of the project you're proposing. Oftentimes, videos at an event as it's taking place is very much appreciated. You want to be able to not just show the great talent that's on display, but something that shows that it's well attended and you have an excited and enthralled audience. Those go a long way in impressing panelists. If you're doing something educational in nature, we welcome artistic samples that show the learning and skill building happening with a smaller group. For example, you might have a teaching artist in a classroom conducting a lesson. It goes a long way to show teaching artist chops and quality there, as well as a video of a culminating public presentation. That's a good combo of content to include. Other things to consider when you're uploading videos: do know panelists may be wanting to click into this as late as December, January, February of the coming year. So when you upload a video, make sure it's accessible via the link that you're sharing up and through that time. Make it easy for panelists to access your links and videos. Avoid password protection if you can, but if you do decide to do it, make sure to include that information in your description notes here. Other savvy strategies here is give the panelists a specific start and end time to view. If you're uploading a lengthier video, giving them a sense of where to start and end is helpful and helps them manage their time. Okay, let's go to supplementary materials. Returning applicants might notice that we're not asking this time for you to upload a host venue form. I hope that comes as good news. We understand it's becoming very, very difficult to get a hold of people and have them sign documents. So in lieu of that, we still want to understand you've thoughtfully planned for where your project's going to take place. So we have a series of attachments here. The first one speaks to this purpose. In lieu of a host venue form, you're going to give us an attachment A, project location. All you have to do with this form is to show us a PDF of the various sites you're proposing to use for your activities, and give us the venue name, their location, their council district, and importantly, an indication of how many years you've been there. That will be used to assess of how likely you will be able to continue activities taking place there. For folks who are planning those multimedia broadcast, podcast projects, online activities serving the entire city, this is where you get to tell us about your strategies used to ensure that you're keeping track of where your viewers are based and how you will ensure that a primary audience base will be here in Los Angeles. The second attachment is a list of prior paid artists. This can be distinct from the list of artists you've already prepared in your proposal. Especially helpful if you're still kind of not certain who you're booking and the acts and artists you're going to involve in your project for many months in the future. A list of those who you paid in the most recent iteration goes a long way in kind of demonstrating and conveying a sense of quality of artists that your project will involve. Curriculum and lesson plans. So this is a very important attachment for those, especially in our SailCape category. As a quick reminder, SailCape projects are in-school learning experience that are California art standards aligned. And a required element of your proposal is that you upload a detailed curriculum that demonstrates standards alignment and rigorous sequential learning. Make sure that you check that box and upload a thorough curriculum as part of your proposal. Also, if you're an artistic project applicant who's not doing something in schools, but you're still doing something educational in nature, involves skill building, we encourage you to upload a lesson plan, a lesson outline, an outline of learning, so that you can leave the panelists understanding the extent and depth of transformation your project is expected to produce. I'm doing a theater presentation. I don't have a curriculum lesson plan in this example. Non-arts partners is a great place to put down other collaborations you're going to involve, the social service agencies, community-based nonprofits. We like to see projects that involve other organizations in their execution. Last item is an optional item as well, a letter of recommendation. This is where you want to include outside voices, attesting to how fabulous your organization and your project is. Take advantage of these optional items. The strongest, most competitive proposals will have really great attachments included here. I think I missed one here. Attachment C is press material. We love to see any kind of press coverage around the recent iteration of your project. We understand sometimes press is hard to come by. So use this as another opportunity to upload another outside voice, like an unsolicited, thank you letter from a prior event participant if you can't find any recent press material. Okay, mark that as complete. All right, thank you, folks, for sticking around. We're on the home stretch, but let me see here. We are now. I think that's it. That's it, actually. Yes. The last two items are service metrics, where you give us a kind of like a financial picture of your organization and your community served, as well as a process evaluation form where you can share with Brenda, Moon, and myself any feedback you've had for this process that you've experienced. We take a look at that and we endeavor to make our process easier, better, and more user-friendly every year. So we appreciate any feedback you give for us there. And you'll know you're ready to submit once all of these required items are illuminated with a green check mark, and you'll get this green submit button. And it's a very satisfying experience, but don't jump to it yet. We'll encourage you to double check, triple check everything that you prepared here to avoid all those pitfalls we've outlined earlier. The good news is you're one of our advantage folks because you're attending a webinar at least 2 weeks in advance. You'll have some time to prepare these materials, to do the double check and triple check to make sure you're putting forth a proposal that really shows your best foot forward. But after you've double checked and triple checked, you can click that submit button. You get one last reminder to review, and then you'll get a thank you page and then an automatically generated email response confirming submission. And then you'll get instructions there for completing the next steps, which is submitting to us a hard copy of your proposal. All right, that's it. I'll pause here for questions.
Yes, excellent. We have 2 raised hands, so I'd like to invite Allison and then Renato to unmute and ask their questions.
Great.
Oh.
Oh, hello.
No.
Hi.
Hi, Allison.
Hi.
Okay, Renato?
Yeah, my question is with on the arts where you guys submit where your budget is at. If it's your first time, is it we need to register that or no?
I'm sorry, Renato. Is the question regarding your organization budget?
Regarding about where you get your proposal, like the budget and everything, on the next link that you were showing, where we have to send you your data from the.
I'm sorry, Renato, I don't quite follow. Are you talking about a project budget or your organization budget?
No, I'm talking about the one that is the arts, the D arts, where you get the yeah.
So Renato, I'll re-emphasize again, because it sounds like you're going to apply to us in the festival category because you are a non-arts and culture focused organization.
Okay.
You are exempt from data arts.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Instead of uploading a data arts report, you get to upload a 990 for your most recently completed.
990. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Well, the 990, if it is because we just started with this organization, so we had to change to change our brand name and everything. So we're really brand new with the new nonprofit. So how do we do that?
You need to be able to show
Renato,
us.
why don't we take a separate offline call with you?
Okay.
These are specific to your organization. We want to be mindful of time, and we'd love to have a separate call with you to discuss all your questions.
Thank you. I will appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Renato. I Madeline, I see you have a raised hand.
Yes.
I invite you to unmute yourself.
Just
And
a quick question, kind of the same thing. We're an after-school program that does arts, but in the past we have done a data arts report. But I just heard you say that if we're not technically an arts organization, we could just do the 990. Or since we present arts programming, we should continue to do the data arts.
can you confirm what your mission statement is?
Our mission statement is to provide academic assistance and artistic education free at after-school programs, and we do it at 8 Title I schools in after school in Los Angeles.
Is arts education listed in your mission statement?
Yes.
First sentence?
Yes.
It's sounding like you're an arts organization for us, Madeline.
Okay.
So, because that's a primary directive of your organization's purpose, is to deliver arts education.
Right.
That for us is an arts organization, so we would expect to see a data arts report for you.
We've done it. We've been funded by you before, and we do the data arts. I was just curious since he said he only had to have a 990. But
for our non-arts folks.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Any additional questions? All right. Oh, Allison, one last one there.
So sorry, I think I pushed the wrong button before. Two questions actually. It looks like it is not required to submit a 990. Is that correct?
Not a requirement.
Got it. Okay. And then number 2 is for the list of artists that were paid in the previous project or the previous year. Do we have to include every artist?
I would suggest you include a representative list that jives with the activities you're proposing. Your goal with that attachment is to show that you've done this project before, that what you're proposing, and these are the artists that were involved. It's an opportunity to highlight the level of talent, expertise, and quality that the panel can adjudicate. So if you have artists involved with an entirely separate program initiative your organization does, I wouldn't say that's necessary to include. You're trying to come up with a representative list that aligns with the project you're proposing.
Okay, but it's not meant to be, it doesn't have to be exhaustive. Like if there's 200 artists, I don't need to include all 200 artists. I could just include like the best of.
Sure, I think that's totally fine. You might want to include in that attachment an indication of that this is a representative list, but there's 200 more fabulous artists that we supported.
Fantastic, thank you.
There was one more question in the chat from Jennifer asking about the in-person session on 8/25. Jennifer, it's actually 8/20, just to make sure you have that correct date. Will we get personal coaching?
That's a good question. I think the answer is yes. That should be a smaller gathering. Our grants director will be facilitating that meeting, and by virtue of being in a smaller setting, there's much more opportunity for personal coaching. But do know the focus and major thrust of that meeting will be similar to this. It'll be an overview of the program and strategic points for putting forth a competitive proposal. Okay, I think this is a good time to wrap up. I'm going to be mindful of folks' time. Let me pass it to you, Brenda, for closing remarks.
Just want to say thank you all for coming. We are always available for your questions and for your information about your projects. Feel free. The best way to reach us is by email. That is the fastest way to reach us. And here's our information.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We appreciate your time.
Brenda, I have a question for you. How do I reach out to you?
Renato, you should see it on the screen. You'll have our phone number and our email address. That's email address is the best way to reach out to us.
Yes, and we'll set up a call with you.
Thank you.
And just letting everybody know that the recording of this webinar will be available on our guidelines website and on the DCA YouTube channel.
Fabulous. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.